Welcome to the official channel of Prosper Anang Ministries. Step into a powerful journey of faith, inspiration, and spiritual growth with Pastor Prosper, a privileged servant of Jesus. As the lead pastor of the New Testament Gospel Church in Benin City, Nigeria, Pastor Prosper is on a global mission to transform lives. He is an author, writer, fluently sharing God's Word, deep, life-changing insights right to your screen. If you are seeking spiritual guidance, a vibrant faith with God, you are in the right place.
Have you ever, found yourself reacting to a situation with a level of sheer explosive intensity that just completely baffles everyone in the room?
Oh, absolutely. The classic 0 to 60 moment.
Right. And if you're being truly honest with yourself, it probably baffles you too. Picture this. You're in the kitchen, someone leaves a cabinet door open. Or maybe a colleague sends an email that is just slightly too brief.
Yeah, in the grand scheme of things, it's nothing.
Exactly, it's nothing, but suddenly your heart is pounding, your jaw is clenched, and you are unleashing this level of anger that makes absolutely no logical sense for the moment at hand. You're left standing there thinking, where on earth did that come from?
It's a wildly universal experience.
Yeah.
That moment of total disproportion. The punishment does not fit the crime.
Yeah.
The reaction is 100 times larger than the stimulus.
Ooh.
And the default human response to that kind of outburst is almost always to minimize it.
Right, we brush it off.
We do. We tell ourselves and whoever we just snapped at that we're just having a bad day, or we didn't sleep well, or we're stressed about a deadline. We just look for anything in the immediate environment to blame.
We blame the traffic, we blame the coffee machine, we blame the open cabinet door. But today, we're going on a mission to uncover the hidden underlying roots of those repeating anger patterns. And to do that, we are diving into a very specific, fascinating source.
A really insightful one, yeah.
We are exploring today's Word for You Devotional by Pastor Prosper Anang.
It's such a deep resource.
It really is. And right up front, to properly set the stage for our listeners, I need to read the official framing for this teaching. The author introduces this specific study with this exact statement. Quote, "Mastering your anger. A 21-day journey from bondage to dominion is a practical teaching series drawn from my book, Mastering Your Anger, Biblical Principles of Anger Management, Emotional Intelligence Book 1, available on Amazon. Throughout these 21 days, I will be sharing biblical truths, practical insights, and spiritual guidance designed to help you understand anger, overcome its bondage, and walk in dominion through the wisdom and power of God's Word."
That is just such a powerful, clear mission statement for what we're going to unpack, because this specific lesson tackles that exact phenomenon of the overreaction head on.
It really does. Pastor Prosper Anang presents the central thesis that challenges our usual excuses. He basically argues that these disproportionate emotional explosions are rarely, if ever, about the present moment.
Right, they aren't about the email, they aren't about the cabinet door.
No. Instead, they are the clearest possible indicator of what he calls an unhealed offense.
An unhealed offense. It's a heavy phrase.
It is. Okay, let's unpack this. Because if I'm understanding that correctly, it completely shifts the spotlight away from whatever's happening right in front of you and points it backward.
Exactly. To really grasp what Pastor Prosper Anang is saying here, we have to move past the surface level experience of getting mad. We have to dig into the psychological and, the biblical mechanics of why an initial emotional wound doesn't just naturally fade away.
Right, and the text actually starts by grounding this entire concept in a very stark, realistic view of human interaction. It points to the book of Luke, specifically Luke chapter 17, verse 1.
Yeah, where Jesus states that it is impossible to avoid occasions of stumbling or offenses.
Impossible.
Right. The author uses this foundational scriptural law to establish a baseline. In a world full of imperfect people, getting offended or misunderstood or hurt is not some rare anomaly. It's not something that only happens if you make a mistake. It is an absolute inevitability.
That feels like a really important foundation to set because it removes the shame from the initial hurt,
Absolutely.
The devotional isn't claiming that if you're living perfectly, you'll never get hurt. The mere presence of an offense in your life isn't the failure. I like to think about it like a physical wound. If you decide to hike through a dense, thorny forest, you are going to get scratched.
Right, it's just part of the hike.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Getting a cut isn't a moral failing, it's just a byproduct of walking through the woods. But if you get a deep cut and you refuse to clean it, it doesn't just stay a benign little scratch. It attracts bacteria.
It gets infected.
Yes, it gets infected and that infection spreads, and suddenly a tiny scrape on your arm is threatening your entire immune system.
That physical analogy mirrors exactly what Pastor Prosper Anang is describing on a spiritual level.
Yeah.
The devotional emphasizes that the true danger lies in what happens to an offense when it is left unaddressed. It doesn't remain static.
No, it mutates.
Yeah, what's fascinating here is how the author brings in a powerful piece of imagery from Proverbs 18:19. That proverb states that an offended brother is harder to reach than a fortified city. Right, and that disputes are like the barred gates of a fortress.
A fortified city, I mean, that is an incredibly heavy image to attach to a personal grudge.
It is, and the progression the author draws from that proverb is just brilliant. We all know the old cliche, right? Time heals all wounds.
Right, we hear that all the time.
But this text argues the exact opposite when it comes to an unresolved offense. Time does not heal it. Time merely gives the fortress the necessary space to build thicker walls.
Oh, wow.
Pastor Prosper Anang uses the analogy of a green branch to explain this. When a branch is freshly cut from a tree, it's green, it's pliable, it's soft, you can bend it. But as it sits there and dries out over time, it stiffens, it becomes rigid and hard.
Yeah, it snaps instead of bending.
Exactly. And in the exact same way, an unhealed offense hardens into a rigid defensive structure within a person's mind.
So rather than the pain slowly evaporating into the ether like we hope it will, you're actually doing construction work. You're building a castle around the pain, complete with moats and archers and heavy iron gates.
That's the mechanism. And a fortress has two primary functions: keep invaders out and protect whatever is inside at all costs. The longer you leave it standing, the more entrenched it becomes.
Okay, I need to push back here on behalf of anyone listening because I know the natural reaction to this idea. Poking around in old wounds is painful. It's messy.
It's incredibly uncomfortable.
Right. We are constantly told by society to just let it go, to leave the past in the past. Isn't it just easier and maybe even healthier to ignore the past and focus on today? Doesn't digging up some old offense just cause more unnecessary drama?
It's a completely logical question. Self-preservation is a powerful instinct.
Yeah, why poke the bear?
Exactly. But the devotional provides a rather chilling counter-argument to that strategy of avoidance. Ignoring the fortress guarantees that it will actively sabotage your future. Here is the reality of fortresses. They do not just sit passively in the background. If you keep the walls up, and the guards are always on high alert looking for threats, eventually they are going to start firing at the wrong targets.
Because they've become hypersensitive to anything that even remotely resembles the original attack.
Precisely. And this leads into one of the most striking concepts in the entire source text. It's the idea of the generalizing wound.
Okay, a generalizing wound.
Yeah, and I want to highlight the core statement here. Pastor Prosper Anang's P.P. Ken quote for today's devotional is, "An unhealed offense does not stay in the past. It recruits every new situation to relive itself in the present."
Recruits. I want to pause on that word because it implies something so active and intentional. It's almost predatory.
It really is.
An old memory isn't just sitting there collecting dust. It is actively drafting new present-day moments into a war that ended years ago.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it drafts new moments, and more importantly, it drafts new people. The text provides a couple of incredibly relatable examples to illustrate how this generalizing wound functions in everyday life.
I'd love to hear those.
So imagine someone who is deeply hurt in their formative years by a parent's harsh, relentless criticism. To survive that environment, they build a defensive fortress. Now, fast forward 10 or 15 years. They're in a new job, and a manager gives them some incredibly mild, constructive feedback.
Just a standard, everyday performance review.
Exactly, just normal feedback. And suddenly, they react with furious, defensive, completely disproportionate anger. The mechanism here is entirely misplaced. That manager didn't do anything resembling the parent's emotional abuse.
But the fortress doesn't care.
No, the fortress doesn't care at all. It interprets almost any critical tone, any piece of feedback, through the distorted lens of that original foundational injury. It perceives a threat and fires the cannons before it even bothers to confirm if this new person is actually an enemy.
Wow. The text gives another example about betrayal, doesn't it? Which I imagine operates on the exact same logic.
It does. It describes someone who was betrayed by a close friend in the past. And as a result, they find it absolutely impossible to trust anyone new.
So they just project that past betrayal onto everyone.
Right. They react with intense suspicion or jealousy toward new friends or new partner over tiny, innocent situations. Situations that bear zero actual resemblance to the original betrayal.
When you frame it around that word recruits, it really highlights how exhausting this dynamic must be, especially for the people around you. Think about the collateral damage.
It's massive.
You are unknowingly dragging your current colleagues, your new friends, your partner, into an emotional battlefield that they had absolutely nothing to do with. You're forcing them to wear the uniform of the person who hurt you a decade ago.
That is such a good way to put it.
It proves that the blinding rage you feel over that short email isn't about the sender at all. That sender just accidentally stepped on a tripwire that was wired to a very old bomb.
And that is exactly why simply trying to manage your anger in the present moment usually fails.
Because you're fighting the wrong battle.
Right. If you are just trying to take deep breaths or count to 10 when the email arrives, you're trying to negotiate with a symptom while completely ignoring the root cause. If you don't dismantle the fortress itself, your brain will continue to interpret the present through the unhealed trauma of the past.
This paints a pretty stark picture. We've got the diagnosis. We are walking around inside these invisible fortresses, driven by unhealed offenses that are actively recruiting innocent bystanders into our past pain.
Yeah, it's a tough reality to face.
So the multi-million-dollar question is, what do we actually do about it? How do we tear down defensive walls that have been standing for years without completely blowing up our lives in the process?
That's where the devotional shifts from diagnosing the problem to providing a real kingdom remedy. It outlines a section specifically called Kingdom Application, which details a deliberate process for dismantling these structures. And it breaks down into 4 actionable steps.
Let's walk through this, because here's where it gets really interesting. The very first step the author suggests is brilliantly simple on paper, but I imagine incredibly difficult in practice. Step 1 is trace the pattern. You do this by asking one specific question in the heat of the moment. Who does this remind me of?
A single question is designed to act as a circuit breaker.
But wait, hold on, I have to play the skeptic again. When I'm seeing red over a cabinet door, my brain isn't exactly in a state of calm, rational philosophy, you know?
No, of course not.
My heart is racing, adrenaline is pumping. How on earth is someone supposed to hit pause and ask a diagnostic question when their body's literally in fight or flight mode?
It's a very fair point, and it touches on the biology of anger. When you're triggered, your amygdala, the emotional center of the brain, hijacks the system. Logic goes out the window.
Right.
But the act of asking a specific, targeted question like, who does this remind me of, forces a cognitive shift. It demands that your prefrontal cortex, the logical part of your brain, turn back on to search for an answer.
Oh, that's fascinating.
It creates a necessary micro gap between stimulus and response. It forces you to look at the root instead of the symptom, which immediately stops you from aiming all your fire at the person standing in front of you.
That makes a lot of sense. So it's essentially a trained muscle. You force the brain to redirect its search from the current room to the historical archive. Okay, so I take a breath, I ask the question, and I realize, wow, I'm reacting to my old boss right now, not my current coworker. What happens then?
Then you move to step 2. Name the specific offense. Pastor Prosper Anang is very firm here that moving from vague feelings to exact wounds is absolutely crucial.
Because it's really easy to just use broad labels, right? To say something like, well, I just have a problem with authority, or I struggle with criticism.
Exactly, and the text suggests that vague awareness is practically powerless. Saying I have trust issues is actually just another defensive shield. It doesn't dismantle anything. To tear down a wall, you have to name the specific brick. You have to say, for example, I was deeply wounded when my father dismissed my achievements on graduation day. You have to pinpoint the exact moment the fortress began construction.
Which is terrifying. Naming it makes it real. It forces you to look directly at the ugly thing you've been trying to avoid for years.
It does.
But I guess it also gives it borders. It's no longer this massive nebulous cloud of rage hovering over your life. It's a specific historical event that had a beginning and an end.
It demystifies the pain.
Yeah.
This raises an important question, though, about what we do with that pain once we name it. Because step 3 is where the specific spiritual framework of the devotional comes to the forefront. Step 3 is bring it to God. And this is central to the author's methodology. He argues that because these fortresses are so entrenched, willpower alone cannot dissolve them.
Wait, why wouldn't willpower work? If I just white-knuckle my way through the trigger, if I bite my tongue and refuse to yell at my coworker, isn't that a victory? Why do I need to bring it anywhere?
Because white-knuckling is just behavior management. If you bite your tongue, you might stop yourself from yelling, but your heart rate is still elevated, and you are still burning with intense resentment on the inside.
You're just swallowing the poison.
Exactly. You are just sitting on the lid of a boiling pot. From the perspective of this devotional, willpower manages the symptom, but spiritual surrender turns off the heat. Dismantling the structure requires bringing that specifically named offense to God in prayer and asking for the root to be healed. It's an admission that you don't have the tools to take down a 20-year-old stone wall by yourself.
So it's the difference between learning how to hide the fortress better and actually letting the walls fall down. Which leads directly into the fourth step, the practical daily application: distinguish the old from the new.
Right.
Once you know the fortress is there and you've brought it to light, you have to learn to actively separate the past echoes from the present reality.
And to help with this, the devotional includes a section called Speak Life Declarations. These aren't just empty positive affirmations, they're deliberate, vocal commitments to approach your triggers differently based on that foundational scriptural law.
Let's actually walk through those, because getting this out of your head and speaking it aloud is so powerful.
Definitely. I'll read them slowly so listeners can really take them in. Speak Life Declaration 1 is, I choose to name my specific offense and bring it to God for healing.
I love that. Acknowledging the root.
Speak Life Declaration 2 is, I distinguish the old wound from the new situation.
Drawing that boundary line.
And Speak Life Declaration 3 is, I respond to people as they truly are, not as echoes of what once hurt me.
Not as echoes of what once hurt me. That is such a profound way to phrase it. If you think about what an echo actually is, it's a sound that is bounced off a hard surface, often returning distorted, confused, and disconnected from its original source.
That's a brilliant way to picture it.
When we react out of an unhealed offense, we are treating the person in front of us like a distorted reflection of someone else.
We are denying them their actual identity. If your spouse makes an innocent comment about how you loaded the dishwasher and you explode because it sounded like your hypercritical parent, you aren't responding to your spouse. You're responding to a ghost. This declaration is a commitment to living in the present tense and giving the people in your life the dignity of being seen as they truly are.
It's a commitment to stop making innocent people pay the debts of those who hurt you in the past.
That's exactly it. The author is very insistent that trying to manage an unhealed offense in silence is a losing battle. You have to name it, you have to seek spiritual healing that goes deeper than behavioral modification, and you have to consciously choose to separate the present moment from the past injury.
You know, this entire lesson is so rich, and it actually makes for an incredible small group discussion.
Oh, absolutely. This is perfectly designed for a church teaching session or a home fellowship meeting.
Right. If you were listening to this with a Bible study group, there are some great reflection questions you can use to really dig into this together. Like, what challenged you most from today's lesson?
Yeah, or asking each other, how can this truth be applied this week? Another great one is, what areas of your life need adjustment in light of this scripture?
I love that one. And even just simply asking, which part of the devotional spoke most deeply to you? Or how does this help you understand anger more biblically? Because talking about it in community really helps solidify that personal transformation.
It really does. It brings it out of the shadows.
So let's bring all of this together for you, the listener. We started this deep dive looking at the smoke. Those moments where your anger is just too big, too hot, and too fast for whatever minor annoyance is actually happening in the room. And by exploring the insights from today's Word for You devotional by Pastor Prosper Anang, we've traced that smoke all the way back to the fire.
We've seen that the fire is usually an unhealed offense.
Yeah.
And contrary to popular belief, that wound doesn't just fade with time. Like a drying branch, it hardens.
Yeah.
It turns into a fortified city that locks its gates and becomes incredibly hypersensitive to anything that even remotely looks like a past threat.
And its most dangerous feature is its ability to recruit. It drafts your current friends, your current coworkers, and your current partner into a war they didn't start. But the most liberating takeaway from this entire discussion is that you have agency.
You absolutely do.
You don't have to keep living inside that fortress. So what does this all mean for you? It means that by tracing the pattern, asking, who does this remind me of? Naming the specific wound and seeking foundational healing, you can begin the work of dismantling the walls. You can finally start responding to people as echoes and start responding to them as they are.
It's the journey from being a hostage of your past to being an active, grounded participant in your own present. It just requires the courage to look at your own anger and ask what it's truly trying to protect.
It's incredible how unpacking one concept can completely shift how you view your own reactions. As we wrap up this deep dive into day 8 of Mastering Your Anger, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over as you go about your day. I want you to think about the very last time you had a completely disproportionate, over-the-top reaction to something incredibly minor. Really picture that moment in your head.
Hold that image.
Now, if that massive emotional reaction was a brick in a wall, what building is it actually attached to? And more importantly, whose name is written on the foundation?
That is the question that changes everything.
Take some time to sit with that today. Until next time, keep diving deep.